If you could be paying less on your mortgage, you'd want to know, right? First Commerce Financial will look at your current mortgage statement at no cost and no obligation to see if they can provide you with a better option. And if you're in the market to purchase a home, they can also save you money as they provide some of the best rates without the junk fees associated with most mortgages. They've already helped over 225 Floridians save money this year. The options they have available are ready to help you with your mortgage or refinancing needs. Simply call 248-207-2404 or visit them online at firstcommercefinancial.com. Mention you heard it here first on Warchant. Welcome into the Warchant.com report. It's Miami week, and away we go thanks to our friends at First Commerce Financial. Before we get going and before we get into the ins and outs of the actual game, just a reminder, this Friday night, if you're coming into town for the game or you're going to be in town in general, swing on by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. My show from 3 to 6 will be broadcast live there, and then afterwards we're going to have a fundraiser, if you will, partly for the Bar None Foundation. I should say it is for the Bar None Foundation. My friend William Floyd, old teammate, going to be up there and meet and greet for that first hour, beginning at 7 o'clock, I think, right? And great opportunity to hang out with a living legend. William Floyd is one of the great all-time players in FSU history and a great guy. And this is a great foundation. So it's casino night. Yeah. Who doesn't like that? Everybody going to hang out and get after casino night. So feel free to stop on by. All right, as for the game, 3:30 this Saturday, ABC, and it's not where the rivalry should be, but it is still a huge rivalry and an important game. You'll get Miami, they're 30th in the S&P. Look at Florida State, around 40th. So two very similar teams with weaknesses at quarterback. But before we get into the details of that game, let's look back at what just happened with Florida State's victory over Syracuse. And obviously, it's rare that we have what I call a rocking chair win, where everybody gets to relax and Florida State dominates a football game, and they did. Alex Hornibrook is now 2-0 as the starter, Gene. I do think both teams in this matchup are pretty limited at quarterback, but I would guess he's going to get the start this week.
You'd think. You said he's 2-0, and really the other game, too, he came in and really helped him win that game as well. And he, like you said, neither quarterback's very dynamic. You're not too excited about either one, but we're going to talk about this later. I think what you like is his limitation on turnovers. He seems to make the right decisions. He's more apt to take a sack than force a ball, which I think is very important. And here's I got to give. I think Ira started the research on this, and Corey wrote the story earlier this week on Warchant about how these guys have performed against the sack. Numbers statistically aren't that different, but when you look at this number, it's very telling. Against the blitz, James Blackman grades out at 39.5 on Pro Football Focus. That is not a good number at all. When you're down below 40%, that's really bad. Alex Hornibrook, on the other hand, 71.4%. I mean, that's almost double as efficient there. And you're playing a team that will bring pressure. This isn't, you're not playing Wake Forest or a team with not very good defense. Miami's got two really good linebackers that have come a lot. They rank number 12 in the country in getting sacks on the quarterback, so I think it's really important to do that. And, this is a game, the last 5 seasons been decided by 5 or less points. So a turnover here or there is going to make a huge difference. And as I said earlier, I think James Blackman is more apt to make that mistake at a key moment than Alex Hornibrook is.
It's an interesting situation because they introduced a new element to that position this past weekend, obviously with Cam Akers back there at quarterback as well, running the wild cam. I thought it was highly effective, not just efficient looking at the numbers, but something that they could really build on going forward. I would ask you, Ira, your thoughts on pulling that out for extended periods of time in a game like this.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to. I mean, Miami's defense is really good. They're not a great football team overall, but their defense is legit. And, we've seen this Florida State offense has some lulls. It has some opportunities early in games, it seems like. It plays pretty well. Then there's those lulls in the middle. Once you saw the wild cam in effect and what it did in terms of moving the ball, moving the chains, sustaining some drives, you think back to some of those games earlier this season when they would get into those lulls. Maybe if you had sprinkled that in some of those games, maybe it gets the offense going, gives them a little jump start, kind of gets things going again. I love Cam Akers. I mean, obviously he's the best player on your team. He gets the ball in his hands more. The fact that he can throw it is a huge weapon, and it really makes the defense account for so many different things. They don't have as many bodies up front, but they also have to count for the pass. I think it's going to be a big part of this game, and the only concern about it to me is ball security. Cam Akers has put the ball on the ground a little bit as a running back. He also, one of his 3 throws was a really poor decision. So that part of it, from on the one hand, you say, why isn't he a quarterback every play? On the other hand, you also have to worry about ball security a little bit.
I love it. I would run it an awful lot. I just want to add to what Ira said right there. You win the math battle right there with the extra blocker that it provides. I also think there is a real run-pass option with him. So you get that P part of it in there as well. And you also it's basically a single wing is what that offense is. And it is hard to defend because you can incorporate a lot of your skill players. Obviously, it gets Kalon Laybourne out on the field at the same time. In addition to the fact that you can do things with Trayshawn Harrison and other guys. So I would utilize it an awful lot. I think anything that gives FSU an extra blocker is probably a good thing, and it also, of course, puts it in the hands of your best player. Willie Taggart is 0-4 against rival teams, and FSU, at the end of the year is going to be an underdog against the University of Florida, obviously. So let's talk about what this game means. Not only is it Miami, but I think in essence, Ira, and I'll start with you, that there's a real good chance this game is whether or not you go to a bowl. The winner of this game, I think, goes on to a bowl, and the loser, I think, is in serious peril of not doing so.
Yeah, definitely for Florida State. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think if the week later they could still, if they beat Boston College and they're going to beat Alabama State, you still feel like, okay, that could be 6 wins. The problem is you wonder about the state of mind of this team going up to Boston College if they just lost to Miami in a game that, this is a very winnable game. You should beat Miami, this 4-4 Miami team. You should beat them at home this season. What would the mental state of this team be at that point? Now, on the flip side, we have to give them credit. They've stayed together all season in situations like this. When they lost, when they had the ULM game, the ugly game there, they came back and played well at Virginia. When they got blown out at Clemson, they didn't win at Wake Forest, but they didn't just cash it in either. So it's not like I think Florida State's just going to fall apart if they lose at home to Miami, but I think that game at Boston College becomes much more difficult. And Boston College is a little bit more emboldened. If Florida State goes in there after a couple straight wins and they just beat Miami, I think Boston College is starting to wonder, hey, what are we in for? Because they're struggling. They lost their quarterback. They could be kind of going downhill for the rest of the season. So it's a big game. And the impact of that is, like you said, it could be in the difference between, if you think the Boston College game hinges on this Miami game at all, it could be a 2-game swing. And again, like you said, it means whether or not they're bowl eligible. And if they don't make a bowl game, there's bigger implications because I think that puts, Willie Taggart's tenure probably in the crosshairs.
Well, I was just about to go there, Gene, to you, because I think this game takes on huge importance when you consider Willie Taggart's future, when you consider the mindset of the team, as Ira just explained, when you talk about the fact that he hasn't had a signature win. This would probably be considered a signature win if he were to get it early on in his tenure. There's just so much at play here. The ramifications of this football game, big picture, I'll turn to you.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like for weeks we've been pointing to this game, even way back Clemson game. We said, well, looking at that schedule, man, that Miami game just sets up as such a critical game. To Ira's point too, it could be worth 2 games, not just a huge game against your rival to get you bowl eligible. But I agree with Ira. You just don't know the emotional state because the point is, yes, they bounce back from some of these tough situations, but this is going to be a little different because you are playing a rival. They're going to be emotion. They know what's at stake in this game, and we're staring down the barrel of being 0-6 against your 2 rivals if you lose this game. The other thing, if it is a 2-game setback, you're looking at 5-7 again. You cannot finish the season 5-7 back-to-back years. You can't be 0-6 against your rivals, and nobody's really talking about it. And they've done a great job kind of holding this recruiting class together right now, but it's right kind of on the edge. You got more and more guys taking visits. Man, you lose these next couple games, I think the floodgates could open there. That you cannot bring a coach back. I hate to say it, at 5-7. I know I wrote that hardly ever happens. A 2-year coach gets fired. It just rarely happens. But if you go 5-7 back-to-back years, your recruiting class falls apart. Where's the light at the end of the tunnel? You have to have some hope. If you win this game, so what? You go 6-6 and you lose to BC. I think you get some hope. You beat a rival. There's something there to hold on to. If you don't do this, what are you holding on to? So I think Willie Taggart's future could be hanging in the balance this Saturday.
It's always a huge game when Florida State and Miami play. Now you add all those factors into it. This is going to be intense. I think it's going to be a pretty ugly game. In fact, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this football game by previewing it next. We'll take a look at Miami's offense when the Warchant.com report continues.
Your home is one of the most valuable assets you will ever purchase in your lifetime. As a pure mortgage broker, our goal is to provide our clients with the best options surrounding that purchase decision. Whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance an existing home, First Commerce Financial provides 5-star service while saving you thousands of dollars along the way. If you are in Florida, call me at 248-207-2404 or reach us at www.firstcommercefinancial.com.
Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. Let's take a look at Florida State Miami, as brought to you by our friends at First Commerce Financial. And Miami's 4-4, just like Florida State is. I mentioned at the outset they're around 30th in the S&P plus. You look at Florida State somewhere in that same neighborhood. Two pretty evenly matched teams. I will say this, as we look at Miami offensively, they really struggle primarily because of quarterback play, wildly inconsistent there. N'Kosi Perry is an inaccurate passer. Jaron Williams is a redshirt freshman who oftentimes sees the blitz and really is affected by it. So they have struggled there, and without being able to consistently pass the ball, that has certainly hurt the run game. I do know this week Jeff Thomas is going to be back. DJ Dallas, unfortunately, good player, going to be back. So we'll see the full array of athletes for Miami. Gene, your thoughts on who'd you rather see, I guess, from a Florida State standpoint at quarterback?
I think Florida State would rather see Perry back there. Like you said, you talk about wildly inconsistent. I still, when I go back and look, how in the world that guy threw 4 touchdowns against Florida State last year? When I see him play all season, he's just not very good quarterback, incredibly inconsistent. But I don't think we're going to see him, unfortunately. I think it's going to be Williams. He came in. He actually started the season. He beat Perry out, got hurt. And then Perry went in there. Now he's healthy now. And then Perry got benched at the end of the Miami game, and Williams went in and led him to the win. He's a little bit more accurate passer. He's completing about 70%, with Williams or Perry's about 56%. But there really isn't a whole lot of difference between the two guys. Perry might be a little bit more mobile than the two, but I think you prepare the same either way. Again, kind of like Florida State, nothing special about either one of these guys. They're not going to make or break you. But it is what it is. You're going to prepare the same way. But again, when I checked earlier this week, Williams was taking first-team snaps in practice, so that pretty much tells you he'll probably be the guy.
Yeah, he started the week that morning taking practices for Miami, and the reason I dislike that is because I'm with you. I'd rather see N'Kosi Perry. Williams gets affected by the blitz, but he is a much better thrower of the football, as you just pointed out. DJ Dallas being back, how dynamic is he for Miami?
That's a big gain for them. And also, as you mentioned, Jeff Thomas coming back as well. But those are both guys that can make plays. DJ Dallas is a guy that can really stretch the field with his speed. I mean, he's well put together. He's not a small back by any stretch, but he's got really good top end speed. He averages almost 7 yards a carry. For an offense that struggles, that does not have a great offensive line, he's a dynamic player. And again, he's the kind of player who I don't know that Miami's going to put together 12 to 14 or 15 play drives against Florida State. But anytime if you have a guy that can go the distance or break off a 30 or 40-yard run, it's a big deal. He did some damage against FSU last year, I think, in special teams, not so much as a running back, but he's a threat anytime he's got the ball.
As we segue over to the defensive side of the football, Miami's a top 20 defense no matter what measure you're looking at here, and they have some guys that can really get after it and get up and go. Going to be a challenge for Florida State. Here's what Willie Taggart had to say about Miami's defense.
They have some talented players on that side of the ball, very skilled in this secondary, some veteran linebackers who played a lot of football together, and athletic defensive line, so they have the athletes on that side of the ball, and they're aggressive with it. They play man coverage, and they have a defensive end that's pretty active in rushing the passer, so they just play well. They play well together. They run to the ball, and they create takeaways.
That's Willie Taggart talking about Miami's defense. Ira, I'll start with you, and we can look at Shaq Quarterman, and we should because he's a really good player. Rousseau is a guy that a lot of people are looking at now, and they see that body type off the edge. Talk about their linebackers, their ends in this defense in general.
Yeah, the defense is really good. I mean, Manny Diaz, that's his calling card. That's what he brought to the Miami Hurricanes, and even though now he's the head coach, the defense has lived up to its part of the bargain. Without doubt. Rousseau, I think he's a redshirt freshman, but he's got 8 sacks on the year. But they bring pressure.
6'7" too.
They bring pressure from everywhere. I mean, that's one of the unique things about their defense. It's not necessarily blitzing every down, but it's blitzing from anywhere on the field. They've got cornerbacks with sacks, safeties with sacks. The linebackers, obviously, Pinckney and Quarterman are really good. They feel like they've been there forever. It's just a really good defense, and it's the kind of defense that can make plays and change the momentum of the game. Their offense, again, we don't think Miami's offense can go up and down the field, but their defense certainly can put them in position to get easy scores.
Well, and we saw it a year ago in that game that I was in the stands for, and a turnover turned things around, and Florida State suddenly found themselves on the wrong end of momentum. And Miami thrives on that, Gene.
Yeah.
Getting turnovers, we all know about the turnover chain. You're probably looking at the video right now of the turnover chain. But it really, you have two quarterbacks that you worry about for Florida State. Going against this defense, how critical you not turn the ball over here and give Miami short fields, obviously.
Yeah, you referenced last year. I mean, that game was in hand, and then sudden 2 second-half key turnovers deep in your own end and throwing a bad call by the officials, and suddenly you blew it. What was it, a 20-point lead, whatever you had in that game against Miami, when it should have been totally in hand. And that's the thing, that trend is continuing in Miami when they've won these close games. I mean, like Florida State, when they win, it's generally close. When they lose, it's close. But the differentiator has always been turnovers in those games. And their 4 wins, there's an 8-2 turnover margin in their favor. And the same thing happened to Florida State last year. So I think it's essential that Florida State protect the football even more than normal, because this is going to be, if there's any doubt, this is going to be down to the last possession or 2 of the game. It's going to be a close game. You commit a second half turnover, that can make or break this team right there. And again, to harpen back what I said before, I think you need to have the quarterback, whether that's Cam Akers, whether that's Hornibrook, whoever's going to not make the key mistake, because I think that's going to be there. And someone is going to make a key turnover down the stretch, and that's going to be the difference.
Well, we're on the subject of keys to the game. There you go, your keys to the game.
I mean, again, I would say lack of turnovers, but I also think that this Florida State team, I think they're ready to maybe break out a little bit. I really do.
Boy.
I feel like the last game gave them some confidence. You know, Willie Taggart made the comment earlier this season that this team plays up and down to its level of competition. I think he was hoping that they would play up to the level of competition against Clemson, but that was, I mean, they weren't capable, even if they were mentally ready
to do so.
Exactly, they didn't have the ability to do it. Miami is a team they can compete with, and I do think they're going to play really well. And I think this was a Florida State team that's lacked confidence. I think they may have gotten a little bit of that maybe this past week. I think Florida State's going to play well. So in terms of keys to games, I just think it's going to be starting well, and then seeing if Miami will falter a little bit, because everybody's worried about Florida State's psyche. How do you think Miami's fans are worried about their psyche? So I think, to me, it's jumping on them and maybe trying to push it out a little bit.
I would also think, guys, patience is going to be very important here. I don't think you're going to see the 2 teams capable of sustaining long drives. So winning the field position battle there and trying to flip that in your favor, giving yourself opportunities, but understanding that, you know, a punt's okay. You know, you got to live with that. You can't press in this situation because they're not giving the ball back to an explosive offense. And I'm really curious to see who presses in this situation because, you know, obviously frustration begins to build. You've been going on. It's a quarter and a half into the game. Nobody's really moving the ball. Do you take a chance that you shouldn't, which swings momentum to your point about the turnovers? So I would throw that in there. Patience is a big one. And then obviously I'm a big believer that you've got to run Cam Akers out of that wild cam an awful lot to get the extra blocker and really make Miami defend it. I love that they ran that out there this past Saturday and made them had to practice that all week long and have to defend it. It's just unique. It's hard to do. And you see a lot of great coaches. I know I'm prattling on here, but you know, you go back a few years in the NFL, Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest defensive mind the game has ever seen, had no idea what to do when the Miami Dolphins broke out the Wildcat. Remember that game? And it's a hard thing to defend when you don't see it all that often, especially when Cam Akers is running it. All right, we've got some memories in this rivalry. Obviously, Florida State and Miami is as good as it gets, and we'll talk about some of those when we come back and also make our picks. That's all next on the Warchant.com report.
Did you hear that? That is the sound of Florida State football. Be ready, Noles. You bleed it, now own it. Check out Tallahassee's #1 store for FSU gear, Garnet and Gold. Locally owned for over 40 years, turn to their team to bring you the finest selection of spirited apparel and merchandise for every fan. They're always happy to see you and always happy to serve you. Visit their flagship store at 1504 Governor Square Boulevard, the campus shop over on West Pensacola, or if you're on the north side of town at 1400 Village Square Boulevard, and always on the web at garnetandgold.com. Garnet and Gold, a Tallahassee tradition you can depend on. If you're a Seminole, they're your store. Go Noles!
The Warchant.com report is brought to you by First Commerce Financial. If you're looking to purchase or refinance a home and want to secure the best possible rate, all while saving money without sacrificing service, give First Commerce Financial a call at 248-207-2404 or visit firstcommercefinancial.com. Mention you heard it here first on Warchant.com. Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. Obviously, Florida State and Miami, a storied tradition, an incredible rivalry. I know that the fan bases often have heated arguments, but the truth is both sides have etched indelibly moments in time in this rivalry that make it truly special, that they'll always recall and appreciate the other for, I suppose. And, you know, guys, chip in wherever you want. Gene, you and I go back on this a long ways. Back in the old Man Cave show, we used to always have this segment too, talking about the games we remember in our youth, both when we were at school here or when we were children coming to the games. I was telling a friend the other day that even though it's a bad one, in 1987 we lost 26-25, Michael Irvin down the sideline.
Ugh.
I do like that game, though, as a memory because I had such a good time in the tailgate, and I was in high school. I believe you were already in college.
Yeah,
right?
that was my first introduction to the series, was that game. Imagine that being your first FSU Miami.
It was an incredible game.
To sit in the stands for that one.
So many pros on the field.
I still think
that
has the record, doesn't it, for the most players in a game that went to the pros? It was
unbelievable, and I was heartbroken that Florida State lost. My dad took me to that game, but I'll remember it forever. Of course, I also remember with great fondness 28-10 in 1993 when I was a student, and breaking the losing streak and getting that win was huge. And then I've always loved 47-0, which I don't care that they were on probation and really couldn't put up a fight. It just was funny to watch Florida State's players dancing before the kickoff every time they scored, and Miami not being equipped to do anything about it. You want to throw in some here?
Yeah, it's funny how you brought the 87. How somehow the losses somehow sting and resonate more in your memory. They shouldn't, but they did. You mentioned 87, 91, obviously, the wide right. I mean, that just
I wasn't going to
blows
bring it
my
up.
mind. I tell that story all the time when we're sitting on the other end, and Brad Johnson, who was the holder at the time, threw his arms up, and that's all we saw. So we danced around celebrating, and then sure enough to see that damn Ibis running up and down, doing his beak thing, running up and down the field. But I'll say, you mentioned the 93 game, and I think maybe one of the biggest sighs of relief. It wasn't even like you were celebrating because you had this monkey on your back with Miami forever. When Devin Bush picked that pass up and ran back, you could hear the whole crowd just go, oh, finally.
Oh, I was relieved, yeah. I was hugging my buddy Steven.
Yeah, I obviously don't go as far back as you guys. I've only been covering Florida State for 17 or 18 years. I don't know all the history that you guys do, and those were the greatest games, and obviously in the 80s and 90s. Since I've been here, it's been a little bit lower. I had Xavier Lee throwing the ball on the ground 3 straight times.
That was quite the memory.
You had big moments there.
I've had some ugly ones, but I think one from the time I've been covering them I thought that was really just significant was when they went down to Miami, and everybody expected Miami to win, and Chris Thompson had the big game, and Miami just kind of quit. It was kind of, to me, that was kind of the Jimbo Fisher's announcement that, okay, things have changed in the state of Florida.
It signified a shift in that rivalry big time. You're right. I remember before that game, I had a guest on my show in which he said, hey, listen, you guys are still building. It may be a lopsided loss this weekend for you guys. He covered the Canes. He's like, but, you hang in there. You'll get back into it. I remember
Hello,
that.
Gary.
Yeah, so that's still one of my favorite moments. All right, so let's get to, well, first of all, if you're wondering at home, Miami leads the all-time rivalry, 33 wins to 30 losses. But Florida State has won 10 of the last 14, and prior to 2 hiccups recently, really were well on their way to the Platinum Bohica.
Would this have been the Platinum
This
Bohica?
would have been it should have been the one.
2 fluky games.
2 fluky games. So you need to end that streak right now and start a new one and move towards that Platinum Bohica. All right. Time for some weekly picks. We'll conclude it with Florida State Miami at the end. I went 3-2-1 last week. So did Corey. Gene went 2-3-1. The tide has shifted back to the way it should have. Oregon is at Southern Cal. Southern Cal catching 5.
Yeah, I've been riding Oregon. They've been pretty good. They play a little bit of defense, which is unheard of in the Pac-12. So I'm going to go ahead and give me the Ducks. Quack, quack.
I like Oregon giving the 5 as well.
Yeah, I really like the quarterback. I mean, he's just a really nice player. I'm going to go with Oregon.
They're also more physical on the offensive line than a lot of those Oregon teams were in the past. Virginia Tech at Notre Dame. I guess on the surface this seems like it would have been a decent game. Now I really have no interest. Notre Dame is giving 17.5 points. These are 2 bad teams. That's a lot of points. I don't know. I'll take Virginia Tech getting 17.5.
Yeah, what a meltdown by Notre Dame.
How about that?
I mean, that might have been the
giving
biggest
Jim Harbaugh a
shock.
signature win.
Wow. That is a lot of points. You got the little hook there on the end. I would have to think there's some emotional letdown in that game, right? After getting your ass handed to you in Ann Arbor. So, yeah, go ahead. Give me the Hokies.
How bad do you feel if you're a Virginia Tech fan right now that a team that just got blown the hell out is favored by 17.5
by
against
a
you?
Michigan team that struggles to score and never beats anybody who's any good. Yeah,
that's going to hurt your feelings, but I think it's warranted. I think Virginia Tech stinks, and I'm going to go with Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to get a little bit of get right in this one.
And to Ira's point, it makes you feel better. Virginia Tech beat Miami. Virginia at North Carolina. North Carolina started the year well, but has hit rock bottom again, or hard times, I guess I'd say. At least they have a young quarterback they're excited about. They're giving 2.5 here to Virginia, But the wheels are also coming off for Virginia right about now. I think the bottom line is the ACC is terrible, folks. Who you got? -2.5 for North Carolina.
Yeah, Virginia's not what they were cracked up to be early in the season. I don't know. North Carolina's at home. Sure, give me the heels. I don't really care.
I'll take Virginia getting 2.5.
Yeah, I would take Virginia straight up. So
Yeah,
I would definitely take the 2.5.
Sam Howell comes back.
I don't like either one of those teams. Florida and Georgia. Georgia's given 5.5 over in Jacksonville. And if you're a Florida State fan that was really counting on Georgia to knock off Florida just because you like to see Florida lose, you now seriously doubt, don't you, that that's going to happen after watching this Georgia team and their offense at a snail's pace, really not take advantage of all the great athletes they have. And remember how close the Georgia-Notre Dame game was. Now we saw what Notre Dame was. Beginning to get a little worried here. You want to give the 5.5 over in Jacksonville?
You know, I hate taking Florida, but I just, they both played South Carolina. We saw the difference, like you said, the Notre Dame thing. I'm surprised. I think Georgia's just an above average team. They're pretty good. Florida's playing well. They actually have a pretty good quarterback, really good defense. I hate to say it, but man, gotta go with the Gates.
At some point, it's going to come off the tracks. It's smoke and mirrors, the Gators. I'm going with Georgia. At some point, and I think it's this week.
Ira's just all optimism. He's giving me such a good mood. FSU's going to roll.
I hope
Florida's
you're
gonna
right,
beat
but
Georgia.
I don't think it's smoke and mirrors. I think they found their quarterback.
There's a little
They've
bit
got
of
a
smoke.
very
There's
good defense.
There's a couple mirrors.
I
There's a
think
little bit of smoke.
Florida's well coached.
It's not all smoke and mirrors.
I feel like Florida's going to win the game. I really want to be wrong. I hope this guy is right, but I too will take Florida. Gene, how about that? We both took Florida. All right, now it's time for the game, the real game. Florida State and Miami. Florida State opened up as a 6.5-point favorite. That immediately got bet down to 4. That's not surprising. If you watch this offense going against that defense, you really do wonder how it's not just a pick 'em. I think these two teams are terribly flawed. I'll start with you. Florida State giving 4 to Miami.
As long as Hornibrook starts, and I think he is, and I'm going to pick FSU in this, but I'm going to go right at the line. I don't know what that gives me. I'm going to push either way. I got 24-20.
Oh, so you're
Florida
picking the
State
score,
wins.
so it's just a push for you.
Yeah.
Listen, I agree with starting Hornibrook, but he's no great shakes, and he can't get the ball down the field, and Miami's got athletes that are going to walk up and make you play the game in a phone booth. I just don't know how anybody scores in this game. What do you say you?
I think Florida State, was that just a transit? You're not even making your pick
I'll
right
make
now.
my pick
All right.
last. I'll say.
I think Florida State's found some things. I think they found some things on the offensive line. I think the wild cam is a big factor. I also think they've found some things on defense. I think there's some guys that were playing earlier this year. They're not playing as much. I think Florida State's going to win this game. I'm going to go with Noles 31-17. They've all been close for the last few years.
Down.
Now, of course, I'm not sure how Miami
Same
kicks.
score as Syracuse.
Not sure how Miami's going to.
Pretty much the same.
I'm not sure how Miami's going to kick a field goal given their situation, but I'm going to say 31-17, Noles.
Scoring comes at a premium here. Both offenses will struggle. I think its game could really shift on a turnover, as we talked about earlier, in winning field position. I hope Cam Akers is playing a ton at quarterback this weekend in the wild cam. I have Florida State winning this game by the aforementioned spread, 20-16. I've thought 20-16 since I woke up on Monday morning. I'll stick with the Noles, 20-16 in a close one. We're going to be biting our nails.
Missing
in
an
the fourth
extra
quarter.
point or actual 2 field goals?
It's
hard to see this team kicking 2 field goals.
Really close range, really
All right.
yeah. Just stall in the red zone down there around the 10-yard line, 5-yard line, kicking a field goal. Florida State wins it 20-16. So all three of us have Florida State winning the game.
How about that?
I don't know.
That probably jinxed Florida State.
New day. It's a new day in Tallahassee.
For Ira and Gene, good work, Aslan. Thanks to all of you for watching, and we'll see you on Friday night at the Warchant.com party with our friend William Floyd
and
to benefit
P-Dub.
the Bar None Foundation and P-Dub. That's right. And I'll be bartending. Come get a beer from me. All right, sounds good. Be well, everybody.